Hola everyone, welcome to the Orisa Community Discussion Program.
We unite to win each fight.
Romero, and today we would be studying. Hola everyone, welcome to the IFA Orisa Community Discussion Program. I'm your host, Ifa Romero, and today we would be studying the spiritual phenomenon associated to the Ark of the Covenant, or the Ark of the Contract. So let me begin with some prayers. Open ni fun Olorun, Oludumare Oba Ajiki, Mojiloni, Mowogun Meriaye, Iba Ila Orun, Iba Iwo Orun, Iba Ariwa, Iba Gusu, Iba Oba Igba Aye, Iba Orun Oke, Iba Baba, Iba Yeye, Iba Atiwo Orun, Ibashe Igungun Kiki Igungun, Ibashe Ori, Ori Inu Ikori Atiwo Orun, Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. And I'm going to do another opening prayer, this time in English. It is from A.G. Ogbe. It begins by saying that we should not engage the world hurriedly. We should not grasp at the rope of wealth impatiently. And that which should be treated with mature judgment, let us not deal with in a state of uncontrolled passion. When we arrive at a cool place, we must rest fully. We must give continuous attention to the future. And we must give deep consideration to the consequences of things, and this because of our eventual passing. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. All right, so let me go straight in to today's topic. All right, let me start by giving a couple of introductory scripture quotes, starting with Proverbs 22 verses 28, which says, "Remove not the ancient landmark which thy forefathers have set." This, of course, is in relation to us following the way of our ancestors. Now, when you read the various translations of this particular Proverbs chapter 22 verses 28, you're going to get various interpretations. Most of them making reference specifically to a boundary mark. Okay? So what we must understand is tradition is what sets maxims for all persons who are born into a particular family. All right? The other scripture is Job chapter 8 verses 8. It states, "Inquire please." I think there's the Amplified Bible translation. "Inquire please of past generations, and consider and apply yourself," verse 9, "to the things searched out by their fathers. For we are only of yesterday and know nothing, because our days on earth are a shadow." All right, so here again, they are encouraging us to take hold of our ancestors and the tradition and culture that they have established for us. I'm going to read two more, but these two more are a bit prophetic, right? And they, of course, warns a person as to the consequences of not following one's own tradition. Or as put by one of the great prophets in our lifetime, he says that every man should worship under his own vine and fig tree. All right, that's noble duality. Jeremiah chapter 16 verses 6 says, "Thus saith the Lord, stand by the road and look. Ask for the ancient paths where the good way is. Then walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls." But they said, "We will not walk in it." So this warns that there would always be those who would refuse to accept the tradition of their forefathers. The other one I'm going to read, which I've read before in one of the previous shows, is Luke chapter 1 verses 17. And this states, "And he shall go before him in the spirit and power of Elias, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children," and that would be the ancestors, to their descendants, depending on the translation, and fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. I'm going to read it again. "And he shall go before him in the spirit and power of Elias, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready a people to prepare for the Lord." All right. Now, the scripture that we're going to read today is going to be Exodus chapter 25, verses 18 to 22. And as I say every show, for those who follow Bible teachings, you should make it your duty to actually take down the scripture verses and go, when you have an opportunity, by yourself and study them. My job is not to tell you how to interpret anything, but I can advise you that there are many translations and transliterations of the Bible, and in order to get a comprehensive understanding, one should use all the different versions, and one should have etymology dictionaries, Bible dictionaries, etc., etc., in order to get an in-depth understanding as to what these things are referring to. All right? So as I said, today's lesson is about the spiritual phenomenon associated with the Ark of the Covenant. And I want to give a reminder again, because I have different people who stop in from time to time to view the show, and they always wonder why it is this person is an Ifa or Orisa devotee and he's talking about so much Bible. All right, the purpose of these teachings, as I have articulated in all of these streams before this one, is so that we can understand what our ancestors faced, the challenge they faced when they first arrived here in the diaspora. When Christianity, which was the colonial religion, was imposed on our ancestors, they had to make sense of it. And what I'm doing here is I am identifying specific precepts and scriptures in Christianity that our ancestors would have been subjected to learn. What I am doing is I am now allowing us to see what our ancestors saw when they were forced to practice Christianity, because many of them came as adults and were already familiar with their own West African tradition and practice. So therefore they were able to uncover in Christianity things that they were already familiar with. So what I am doing is I am reviewing a lot of the concepts that are parallel meaning our ancestors would have seen them and would have been able to identify it with what they knew from their motherland. So this is what I am doing. All right, I'm trying to give us a view of what our ancestors went through and the difficult challenges that they had. It has nothing to do with I joining no two concepts and syncretization. I hear people use all of these terms, but there is really no syncretization. What one would discover is that our ancestors were able to identify what they knew within the framework of Christianity. All right? So we're going now. Exodus chapter 25, verses 18 to 22. What I did is I'm not going to read the scripture word for word. That would be the responsibility of the persons who are interested in really going deep and having a full understanding. What I have done is I have summarized the verses in my own words. I didn't interpret anything. All I did is made it more compact and smaller. All right, for people wanting a deeper understanding, then, of course, you could go on and do the reading. Verses 18 described two cherubims or cherubs were to be made of gold on the two ends of the mercy seat. All right, I'm going to read everything so that you could understand. All right, so you're going to be hearing terms like mercy seat, cherub or cherubims, all right, and other words. But I would explain and we would go into the etymology of all these words so that we have a better comprehension. So in verse 18 it said that the two cherubs of gold were to be on the two ends of the mercy seat. Verse 19 said one cherub was to be on one end and one cherub was to be on the other end. So therefore, it would have had two cherubs, one on either end, right, of the Ark of the Covenant. All right. Verse 20 said, the wings of the cherubims or cherubs were to be stretched upwards to cover the mercy seat with the faces towards each other, and they would also be towards the mercy seat. That's what verse 20 says. All right. Now, the term mercy seat is something that is used quite a lot locally among the practitioners of Orisa. It's also used quite a bit by the Shouter and the Spiritual Baptist and the Shango Baptist people also, which are our people. All right. Now, the term mercy seat, according to the definition that I got from the Universal Unabridged Webster Dictionary, that was published in 1936. It's a very old dictionary, and I would recommend that persons who want to study any subject, particularly material that was written in a very early time, that we use old dictionaries so that we do not try to apply modern definitions to old words, because that would cause us to have a total misconception of the ideas. So the mercy seat, according to the definition of the Webster Dictionary, it says the golden covering placed upon the Ark of the Covenant. Hence, in devotional language, an approach to the mercy seat signifies an approach to God in prayer. And that is the definition of what is referred to as the mercy seat. All right? So the main thing is it signified an approach in prayer to God. All right? Verse 21, I'm continuing now. Verse 21 talk about place a mercy seat upon the ark. In the ark, place the testimony I shall give thee. All right? Now, it seems from the description that the Ark of the Covenant had a lid. It was some sort of box-shaped thing. I will give you the dimensions and everything as we go on. And the portion that of the lid that raised up, the seat, the mercy seat, was right on that particular portion. All right. So verse 21 says, place a mercy seat upon the ark. In the ark place the testimony I shall give thee. All right. Now for those who practice Ifa or Orisa tradition, they would be familiar with what is called Odus. In Odus, there are several or multiple, many Ifas that describe specific stories of things that have occurred and their outcome and the solutions, etc., etc. I don't want to go too much into that, but I just want to explain that at this juncture so that we understand that testimonies, recorded testimonies, were kept inside of the ark. Okay? Which could be likened to Odus, because our ancestors would have been familiar with Odus, which would have been recited whenever they went to know what was the will of God for their life. All right? Verses 22, I will commune with thee above the mercy seat between the cherubs on the ark of the testimony. Of all things I will give thee commandments unto the children of Israel, or as I maintain, Judah. All right. I would do a lesson soon on why I refer to the nation as the nation of Judah and not the nation of Israel. All right. But that is not today's lesson. All right. Now we're going now into the aspect of the lesson where we're dealing with the issue of etymology. We are going to look at the words and the name, the Ark of the Covenant. I think I just read another name that it is also referred to. It is also called the Ark of the Testimony, which I just read. All right, but that is in reference also to the Ark of the Covenant. All right, the word ark, let's examine that word a little bit. Now, the last development of the word, just before it became an English word, it was an Old English word and it was spelled A-R-K-E. The word ark in English is A-R-K. At least that's the one we use when we're referring to Noah's Ark and the Ark of the Covenant. All right. The Ark, which is A-R-K-E, is an old Northumbrian word, which is spelled A-R-C. All right. And it is used generally in reference to Noah, which I just mentioned, but also in reference to the Ark of the Covenant. Right, or which I also refer to as the Ark of the Contract, right, because that is what the Kemetic people in Egypt or Kemet called the Ark. They called it the Ark of the Contract. Now, the description given, it says, in reference to Noah, but also in reference to the Ark of the Covenant. They said it held tables of the law in the sanctum sanctorium. That just means like a sacred space. All right. Now, here they refer to it as tables. All right. Earlier, when I read, I want to believe they refer to it as testimony. Right. And in some cases, you're going to come across the word tablets. If you read right in the Bible, where different accounts are given for the Ark of the Covenant. Now, it is described here, the Ark of the Covenant, as a large box or chest. All right? The word used in Latin in the Vulgate Bible is arcane, A-R-C-A-N-E. All right? It was borrowed from High German, Araha, which is A-R-A-H-H, and then in modern German, it is called Archie, A-R-C-H-E. All right? In general, it is used to refer to a box or a coffer. All right? In Middle English, all right, in the late 12th century, this word was in reference to the breast or the chest as the seat of emotion. Right? This is the definition given. It also says from the Nochian, all right, which is Enochian or Enoch. The word Enochian comes from the name Enoch, right? The sense comes the extended meaning, a place of refuge, as the name of a type of ship or boat from the 15th century. All right? And that is in the US because they make a particular type of boat that has a flat bottom. It's a large flat bottom boat, river boat, that was used to move livestock and produce in the US to various markets. All right? So here from the Nochian or Enochian is the sense of one, a place of refuge, which kind of similar to Noah's Ark, the Noah's Ark story. Right? And it is also in reference to a type of ship. All right? Now, arcane, A-R-C-A-N-E, is used in the Vulgate in the 1540s. Right? And that was used in having a sense of something being hidden or something being secret. All right? From the Latin word arcana, arcan says it means secret, hidden, private, or concealed. All right? From the word acere or acere, A-R-C-E-R-E, it means to close up or to enclose or to contain. All right? From area, a chest or a box, place for safekeeping. All right? From the root ark, which is A-R-K, it means to hold, to contain, to guard. All right? And it's originally from the Greek arkos, A-R-K-O-S, which means defense, arkein, A-R-K-E-I-N, which means to ward off. And in Armenian, it refers to as argel or obstacle. All right? So, in Lithuanian is also raktas, which means key, and rakinti, which means to shut or lock. So we have an idea that this Ark of the Covenant was built into some sort of box shape or boat shape artifact where things were kept on the inside of it. All right? Now, those were the first sets of etymology findings from using one of the etymology dictionaries, because I have quite a few of them and I try to use them to bring more clarity to the ideas and the concept. All right, I'm going to use now what I got in the Oxford Dictionary of Etymology, right, edited by T.F. Hood. All right, the word arc, A-R-C, comes from Old French arcus, which means bow or arch. Now the term bow here, B-O-W, is in reference to a ship or a boat. The bow is the very front where everything joins, and this part of the ship normally leads the ship to its destination. This is the point and the head part of the boat or the ship. Alright, so based on the concise Oxford Dictionary of Etymology, the word bow and the Old French was arcus, and hence you have the word bow and arch. Alright, now we have the whole development from the word arch, okay, which means a curved structure. Alright, in Old French, right, and in Roman it comes from the word arca, arca. Alright, but the term arch, arch, is a very common term in English. It refers to a chief, a person who holds a position of preeminence, a principal. Alright, now from French, arcos, arkhos, and arkhe from French also means to rule. Arcos means chief, and arkhe means to rule. So we have words coming out of the French, such as words like archbishop, archdeacon. Alright, these are the examples given in the Oxford Concise Dictionary of Etymology. Alright, now from the Dictionary of Words, there was a very interesting association with the Ark of the Covenant, with the word alabaster. Because there is a story in the Bible that talks about the woman who washed Jesus' feet and used her hair to dry his feet, and she anointed his feet with oil of alabaster. Well, Alabaster is actually a district in Egypt where they manufacture or produce the oil, and it is boxed off. So they became very famous not just for the oil, but the containers that the oil was shipped in were referred to as alabaster boxes. So the actual box got the name that became more known than the actual product that was shipped in the box. Alright, so this is something you could look at, and I found that to be, very interesting. So alabaster would have been the box that held the oil, but it was named for the district of Egypt where the oil was produced and shipped from the various parts of the world. Alright, so the word ark, so that there would be the definition that came out of the Dictionary of Word Origin. So we're moving forward now, and we are going on to deal with the Webster Universal Dictionary, which, by the way, gives a lot of different definitions, and it gives you the root and everything for the word ark. Alright, now again, the word ark come from both Latin and French originally, and was used as the word arcus, which means bow, which we already established, and I mentioned to you that the bow is a part of a boat or ship. So it's quite possible, even though we generally see depictions of the Ark of the Covenant as a box being carried, it is quite possible that it could have been shaped like a boat. Remember last week's stream, I spoke about the Jose celebration. I spoke about what happens in Haiti, where they float the boat, Brazil, and different parts of the world where they design the boat, and it is used as an edifice that is sent out to sea, right, to worship the divine. Alright, so in the Anglo-Saxon, you would also find the word ark as EARC, which means a chest or a coffer. You would also see it as ARCERE, which means to keep off. Right? In the Teutonic language, the word ark also is there, but it describes a box and a chest. Right? Now, The Middle English ark, A-R-K, is also recognized as A-R-C-H-E. Anglo-Saxon, it is E-A-R-C or A-R-C. In Latin, it is A-R-C-A, which means a chest or a box, from acere, which means to shut up or enclose. In Greek, it's archein, which means to keep off. This is the Webster Universal Dictionary definitions. And what they did is they gave separate, clear definitions as to how the word ark, A-R-K, could be used. First definition, it says it's a small closed vessel, chest or coffer, which was the repository of the tables of the covenant among the Jews. It was 3 feet 9 inches long and 2 feet 6 inches wide, and was made of acacia wood overlaid with gold. The lid was propitiatory, or the mercy seat. All right, propitiatory would mean that offerings were offered right on that seat. In other words, they propitiated the Most High and on that location. It's called the propitiatory or mercy seat, over which there were 2 cherubims. The second definition for ark is, it says, the large floating vessel in which Noah and his family were preserved during the deluge. All right, so that's the second one. The third one, it says, a refuge, that which shelters and protects. So that's the 3 definition given by the Webster Universal Dictionary of the English Language by Noah Webster from the year 1936. All right, now the term cherub, because we've read earlier where the instruction was given that 2 cherubims were to be made and inlaid of gold, and they were to be placed on either end of the ark. So we're going now to find out exactly what is a cherub, or the plural to the word is cherubim. Cherub is singular, cherubim is plural. All right, and these words were taken from the Hebrew language. All right, the first thing, the cherub was the order, or one of an order of angels, variously represented, but generally as winged spirits with a human countenance, and distinguished by their knowledge from the Seraphs or the Seraphim, whose distinctive quality is love. Okay, I think on the last stream I explained fully what was a seraphim, or what were seraphs, right? And if you can recall, which you could also go back and view the last stream, these were in fact household deities. The Teraphims were household deities. All right, but let me go ahead and just read the definition. One of an order of angel, variously represented but generally as winged spirits with a human countenance, and distinguished by their knowledge from the Seraphs, whose distinctive quality is love. In the celestial hierarchy, the cherubs are represented as spirits next in order to the Seraphs. Alright? Now, the same term, cherubim, second definition is a beautiful child. So if you look at a lot of the old images, you would see these little babies with wings. Those are representative also of the cherub. Alright? The Seraphs are an angel of the highest order. This is a definition. The Teraph, these are both Hebrew words, is a household deity or image revered by the ancient Hebrews. Right? But last week I gave a full explanation and we explained that these household deities would have appealed to the masculine aspect. And we spoke about the Ikenga being the masculine aspect, the Teraphim being the feminine aspect, which has to do with love and have to do with the harmony and has to do with maintenance of health and happiness in the home. Alright? Now the Teraphim seem to have been either wholly or in part of human form and of a small size. This could be seen in Genesis 31-34 as well as in Judges 17 chapter 5. Now, those would have been all the definitions for what is an ark, A-R-K. So we have a clear idea that it would have been an edifice that was built with the cherubs, with a mercy seat in the middle, and that was also used to store particular artifacts that are associated to the tradition that they use as symbols to represent spirituality. We're going to talk about some of it later on. But for now, we're going now into the second part. We deal with the ark. Now we're going to deal with the word covenant. Alright? The word covenant is of Old French origin. Alright? And a covenant is basically an agreement. It is from the Old French convenir, C-O-V-E-N-I-R, from the Latin convenire, or convenire, which means to agree. Alright? To be of one mind, to come together. The first part of the Latin word, con, means to come to, means together. Con means together. Venire means to come. So convenire means to come together. Alright? Now the full definition. A covenant is a mutual consent or agreement of two or more persons to do or forbear some act or thing. It's a contract, a stipulation. That's definition 1. Definition 2. In theology, a covenant is the promise of God to man, usually carrying with it a condition to be fulfilled by man. Now, what this sounds like to me is when you go to do a dafa, where you go to see the Babalawo. The Babalawo does the divination to tell you what is the will of God for you. And after he reveals through Ifa and through the recitation of verses, then he would make recommendations if it was a problem identified to provide a solution and to tell you what it is you need to do. Sometimes the solution does not only come in the form of an ebo, but sometimes it comes in the form of an iawo, where he would give you an advice. Listen, the ebo is saying, the reading is saying, the Ifa is saying, you're talking too much. So what you need to do to get resolution to the problems that you're having is you have to talk less. So it isn't always a material sacrifice. It is sometimes an aspect of your character or your behavior that might need to be adjusted. Alright? The third definition, all right? The third definition is a solemn agreement between the members of a church that they will act together in harmony with the precept of the gospel. All right. This was taken from the Webster Universal Dictionary. All right. Now, the other definition of contract, it comes from the Latin contractus, right, or contrahere, which means to draw together, or to draw together and make a bargain. All right, con means together, and trahere means to draw. So the difference between the covenant and the contract is when there is a contract, it must be in writing. It mustn't just be making the bargain and making the agreement, but they talk about to draw together. All right. To draw nearer together is the definition. To draw into alice, compass, either in length or breadth. To shorten, to abridge, to narrow, to lessen, as to contract an enclosure, to contract the faculties, to contract the period of life, to contract the sphere of action. So with the examples they give basically are various types of contracts. So now these are the different etymological definitions for both the word ark and for both the word contract and covenant. Now, as far as the various views there are as to what the Ark of the Covenant is or might be, there are many, many different viewpoints held by people. I've read some material that says the Ark of the Covenant, the key to it was that there was an agreement for the individuals who were true worshippers of the Most High to be celibate. The most common belief is that the Ark of the Covenant is this little box that is carried around on these two poles made of acacia. Alright? Some believe that the Ark of the Covenant was some sort of thermonuclear electrical generating power plant. Some believe that it is quite possible that it could have been a religious edifice that was designed in the shape of a boat. So if you study the Kemetic viewpoint, they had an Ark of a Covenant that resembled the ones that the Hebrew claimed to be the design of it. Now, two important things about the Ark of the Covenant. Right? One that should be remembered is that the Ark of the Covenant, all of these things were to be overlaid in gold. Alright, and gold is something that symbolizes purity, spiritual purity. The handles that was made for the Ark of the Covenant was made with acacia. And the key to the acacia is a wood, but it represents many different spiritual concepts, right, that are very important. But it symbolizes the whole idea of something that has endurance and that could live for an extremely long period of time. So the gold, which was overlaid, represents purity. That's a symbol of purity. And the handles that was made of acacia represent endurance. Alright, now in the Ark of the Covenant were tables. It also contained the staff of Aaron, the prophet. Alright, now last stream I mentioned Ikenga, and I mentioned it being associated to Mars, as well as I also mentioned the Teraphim being associated to the female deities and the quality of love and all domestic related things. Alright, now I read a scripture last week that also spoke about the fact that a prophecy was made, and in that prophecy it elucidated that our people, the nation of Israel or the nation of Judah, will be without their Ofo and Ikenga, and at some point it would be returned. So basically that's the lesson for this week, and I hope for those of you who took in the stream that this was of some help to you. Alright, our ancestors would have been familiar with various forms of sacred spaces that they would have used and entered in order to perform various type of rituals where they would commune with their guardian, with their higher self, as well as with the Most High. Alright, the Ark of the Covenant is a representative of such practices. Alright, I would like to close off by giving this particular statement, which I've been giving for the last couple of weeks, and that is: you do good for yourself. You do bad for yourself also. Alright, for persons who wish to look at you should look at the other videos to get a greater appreciation for what was presented today, because much of what was mentioned today was mentioned before, and some of the explanations were given ahead, so that today would have been the accumulation of everything. We did libation, which you can go view. We did sackcloth and ashes, which you could go view. We did, on the last stream, we did Urim and Tumim. Alright, and today concludes it with the Ark of the Covenant. Alright, because they are all associated. We also did the ephod. Alright, so folks, enjoy the rest of your week. I'd like to say at this stage, Odabo. Join me next week, where we will be looking into sustainable communities. Alright, I'd like to say Odabo and see you next week.